Happy Tuesday. It is Tuesday, January the 21st day of the year, and it is supposed to snow on the Gulf Coast. It will be the first time I've ever seen snow on the Gulf Coast. And it's also my birthday, so maybe that's why it's supposed to snow. So we'll see. And welcome to another edition of Tuesdays with Tom. Yesterday was Martin Luther King Day, and for my personal observance of King Day, I pulled out my favorite book on Dr. King titled A Testament of Hope, The Essential Writings of Martin Luther King. And if you're old enough, you may remember some of his speeches or when they occurred or where you were when he delivered them. But if you're not old enough to have witnessed the King era, grab a copy of A Testament of Hope. It's a great book. It's essential writings of Martin Luther King. You learn all about King. You'll find titles such as The Letter from the Birmingham City Jail, I See the Promised Land, Remaining Awake Through a Great Revolution, and my favorite, The Drum Major Instinct, which is a sermon he preached from the pulpit of the Ebenezer Baptist Church on February 4th, 1968. Famous excerpts from that sermon were played at his nationally televised funeral service 5 days after his assassination. The Drum Major Instinct is about leadership. But more importantly, it's about being a servant leader. So our G-list guest today is Mr. Eric Simmons. Eric is chairman of the board and founder of the Prostate Cancer Awareness Foundation, established 2 years after he was diagnosed with stage 5 chronic kidney disease and stage 4B prostate cancer. Eric is a graduate of Auburn University, a former walk-on basketball player. He spent 32 years in sales and management with Fortune 500 companies, IBM, AT&T, General Electric, and W.W. Grainger, closing sales of $500,000, $1 million, and $25 million, respectively, in Paris, Brussels, and in Hong Kong. He also serves on the board of directors of the James Owens Foundation and is the CEO of ESE Inc., a website development firm. Eric has published 5 books. He's made Amazon's bestsellers list 252 times. His books are housed in 344 libraries worldwide, including the renowned Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture. We look forward to having that conversation with Mr. Eric Simmons. Our show today, of course, is brought to you by the Best Girl Consulting Firm. So let's hear from Best Girl.
Best Girl is a consulting firm that provides customized leadership, access and inclusion, public relations, communications, and organizational consulting services. Clients include Fortune 500 companies, utilities, higher education institutions, small businesses, and associations. Best Girl's team of consultants, led by Joyce Gilly-Gossam, Emily Hedrick, and Sean Jones, partners with business and education clients to promote organizational effectiveness, communication, motivation, and leadership, with always an impact on the bottom line. Best Girl's customized consulting services include strategic planning, corporate communication, executive coaching, fundraising, and economic development.
Best Girl continues to customize the solution that fits your needs. So let's go to the round table and talk to Barbara Wallace Edwards and Michael Walker this morning. Good morning, Barbara Wallace Edwards and Michael Walker. How you guys doing?
Good morning. Doing well.
Good morning,
Thank you.
Gigi. Doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. Thank you.
I want to start by saying happy birthday, Tom.
Well,
and
thank you. Thank you.
and also happy birthday to Emily Hedrick, who also is on our team. She celebrated her birthday on yesterday. So happy birthday to both of you.
We're blessed.
Absolutely. Happy birthday as well.
Great. So, what's up in your world, Barbara?
Well, I want to start by congratulating the Ohio State Buckeyes and their win last night. That was a great game.
It was a good game, and it was very well played, and I think probably the better team won talent-wise. But
Yes.
but Notre Dame came back and they made it interesting. I was surprised.
It was, I was surprised as well because when I first turned the game on, I didn't see the very beginning, but Notre Dame was not doing well. I think the score was 21-7 or something when I started watching. So I thought maybe Ohio State was just going to really run away with it, but Notre Dame came back and gave them a fight. So they made it a really good game.
They did. I was proud of them.
Yes.
Michael, what's going on in your world?
Well, there's quite a few things I'd like to share, but one comment on that Notre Dame Ohio State game is, Notre Dame got the ball first and they drove right down the field, and they ate up half of the first quarter in that drive and scored,
Right.
And I was like, okay, we got a match going on here.
Right.
Ohio State responded, and they always talk about making adjustments, and in that game you can see the adjustments that were made, because all of a sudden Ohio State kind of shut down Notre Dame and what have you, and Ohio State started to take over the game, but then they came back and Notre Dame started to exert themselves. So you could see some of those adjustments and what have you.
Now the quarterback for Notre Dame, Riley Leonard, I think is his name. He's from Fairhope, Alabama. How did he get away from the state of Alabama? What happened?
Why was I don't know. He ended up going to Duke is where he went to.
Yeah, it's a transfer portal thing.
Okay.
Yeah, he went to Duke, and then he transferred from Duke over to Notre Dame.
Okay. I thought that was really interesting. Normally Alabama, Auburn scoop up the best players in the state. So I thought, wow, he got away.
I think all that has changed now, though. I don't think that's going to be the case anymore.
Probably right, Tom. With the NIL, you're right.
They would get all the best players from the state. I think kids are a little more adventurous now, and where they want to go and what they want to do, and actually how long they're going to be there.
That's true.
Speaking of college athletes, there's a guy by the name of Luke Largent. He is the oldest player to enter the transfer portal at the age of 32. He has served as the starting punter for East Carolina Pirates for the last 3 years. And now he's going to transfer out at the age of 32. So I wonder what kind of NIL money he's getting.
Right. and so did he started college late, Michael? What was the story behind his age? And
when you go to college, you have like 4 to 5 years of eligibility to play sports and what have you.
Right.
And if you never played, during that time that you were in college, you can go back and apply, if somebody give you an opportunity. Okay. So he went back and he walked on, just to see if he could do it. And he ended up being the starting punter. And,
wow.
At this age. So
hey, I guess that beats getting a job, huh?
Right. Right.
Sounds like that's what this is about. He ain't had to go back to school.
Right.
That's what I was thinking, Tom. Because you're going to see more and more players stay in college now with the NIL money going on and stuff.
Yeah.
Why not?
I'm going to be really interested to see the graduation numbers.
Yes.
If they fluctuate up or down as far as this new college football environment.
Yeah. That is going to be interesting.
Yeah.
We'll see. I just hope that there's still the emphasis there, because, you're giving a lot of these kids a lot of money.
Right.
And people older and better and more skilled and more learned than them have lost piles of money.
Right.
And I don't know. I just hope it works out for them.
They got as well. And it's going to be interesting to see how many of these high schoolers actually get a scholarship to go to college, because in IL, again, so many of the players are transferring around to get a better deal. What is that going to mean for kids coming out of high school and getting scholarships to play football or play sports, period?
They're probably going to start. Yeah, they'll be getting money coming out of high school. I don't think that's far-fetched at all.
Yeah, well, some of it may be a trickle-down effect where you have some of these kids that are coming out, maybe instead of getting a D1 offer like they would have, they may get a D2 offer and get money and end up going there, which could help those programs as well.
Right.
And then later transfer in. You know, it's interesting how I think principles have changed in our society now and where we're living. And people, I'm kind of somewhat surprised at the nature of the activities that people will do. There's a new scam going around here in Atlanta where the scammers are now scamming people who have lost loved ones. And what they're doing is, you know how you do the obituary and you post the obituary and the arrangements and, when the service is going to be performed. Well, there's a funeral home here that's been targeted where the scammers are going in and doing the research on the obituaries, contacting the deceased person's loved ones, using the name of the employees of the funeral home where the services is to be located, and telling them that they have to pay $2,000 or whatever in order to have the services performed, and scamming people out of money during this time of emotional turmoil. And there was a big news story on that the other day saying, and the funeral director came out and said, you can establish a payment plan and what have you, and do stuff like that. And there is a program in insurance where they call final expense, where you can purchase a insurance policy and have it placed with the funeral home for that particular need. But the scammers are now doing that to people.
And they do all of that, Michael, instead of finding a real job. The energy they put into scamming people, they could use that to get a real job.
That is their job.
and it's illegal and wrong, unethical, immoral, all of those things.
True.
So did you guys see this new show that Cam Newton's on and what I don't exactly even know how to describe it.
Special Forces, I think it's
something to that effect. And his reasoning for taking the job.
I didn't hear his reason for taking it.
What was money?
Oh, really?
He's got 8 children. He's trying to support, and when we go back and we talk about the NIL, that's what I mean. If somebody is big as Cam Newton was, the NFL most valuable player, obviously had a great contract.
Right.
And if you're I don't know if he's broke or need money, whatever. He described his financial situation as he needed money.
That's interesting, because I recently heard an interview where he talked about he did need money. So, the fact that he was not getting a contract in the NFL wasn't really a financial situation for him. He said he managed his money well that he made. He has several businesses. So, and maybe that his situation has changed, but that's really interesting.
Yeah, I wouldn't get on TV and say I'm broke.
Right.
I don't know. I just think we talk about the young kids in the NIL, and I think you don't have to be young.
That's true.
You can be older and experienced and wiser, and
yeah. Well, a lot of different things change. I know somewhere they said that he had a net worth of $70 million, or he had earned enough money while playing to have a net worth of $70 million. But, it's a difference when you have constant cash flow,
right,
versus money that you have made, and then you're having to dig into that money to support your current lifestyle without that cash flow. And that can be a problem. And you mentioned that he had several businesses. Yeah, but that's true. But those businesses have overhead.
Right.
You have staff, you've got people, you've got a lot of stuff to deal with. And then if you have children and maybe 2 or 3 mothers that you have to deal with, and you're not making the money that you once made, that can take a bite out. And then you think about it with COVID and the way the economy has been, a lot of businesses are having issues just
That's true.
due to no fault of their own. It's just
Right.
because of the environment.
And
Right.
I think in Cam's case, just looking from a distance, and I don't know the brother, um, um, when you're out there now trying to, it's not about playing football anymore. So what image are you going to craft? What are you
Right.
going to sell to the people?
Right.
What do you have to offer to the corporations that might be willing to hire you?
Right.
And I think he has he's very charismatic,
Right.
has skills. So hopefully it'll work out. But as Michael said, if you got 8 children by 3 or 4 different women, it's just you've made it a little difficult on yourself.
So true.
Yeah, that's a big payroll. One thing I like to pass on to our viewers and listeners and what have you is, you've heard about Wachovia and Ozempic and these drugs. Well, there's a study that was done, and they're saying that Ozempic has some other benefits, such as it's helped to reduce the chances of a person having a heart attack that have taken Ozempic and Wegovy. Also, deep vein thrombosis, and get this, Alzheimer's. It has an impact on reducing that. And according to the study, those people that are taking those drugs are less likely to develop substance use disorders from alcohol and even cannabis.
Wow.
And it can lower the risk of experiencing bacterial infection. So there's a lot of benefits, but I think it has to be controlled. And you guys know that there's always a downside. Now, the downside of this is that it could result in developing gastrointestinal issues such as abdominal pain. And some people will have low blood pressure and the risk of arthritis and what have you. So on one side of it, it will reduce inflammation, but then it can also cause arthritis as well. And the caveat, this is a new study that was done. However, they said that, and this is from January 20th, Natural Medicine Journal. They said that the study was used from data from older white males, meaning that your findings may not apply to other demographics. But that was the data where this was gathered from. So you remember at one time, there were people that had not been prescribed Ozempic and Wegovy because of everybody trying to get it to lose weight, and it's supposed to help you with diabetes. Is what it was designed for.
Right.
And now they're finding all these other things out about it. So, you kind of have to weigh it. Which way do you want to go?
I mean, when they just list the side effects, that's enough for me.
I know.
The side effects is everything short of death.
Exactly. You're right, Tom. And I am a firm believer that our bodies are different based on our blood types and our genetics and a lot of different things. And so just because it's beneficial for one person may not mean it's going to be beneficial for someone else. And, they just make a blanket statement and put it out there in the market and sell it to any and everybody. And it's not made for everybody. So, I know they do these studies and people can participate in clinical trials and all of that. But the majority of the people that participate in these clinical trials are white. And that's who they get most of the results from. So it's made for everyone.
Yeah, I don't know. And I think the side effects are kind of like what you described. I mean, depends on the person.
Right, exactly.
What their physicality is and what they're allergic to, what they're not allergic to, blah,
Right.
blah, blah, My wife's allergic to blueberries. So if we go somewhere to eat, we always have to make sure that there's no, whatever she orders, there's no blueberries in it because she'll break out and all this stuff. And so I don't know. I do think it depends on the individual person, what your physical makeup is. And,
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else, guys?
Oh,
Go
go ahead,
ahead,
Michael.
Barbara.
Now, I just got the story I was going to share that's really strange. Out of Arkansas, there's a hospital mortuary worker who was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison last week for selling body parts to a gentleman in California that she met on this Facebook group. There's all kind of social media groups out there, but this Facebook group talks about people who are body part collectors. Never knew that there was anything like that existed. But this particular woman, 37 years old, has sold the human remains to this man in California for $10,000 for 24 body parts, including fetuses, baby fetuses. So there's some strange people out there. And, she's been sentenced to 15 years, and the man she sold the body parts to is out on bail right now, waiting on his trial.
Bobby, where you reading this stuff?
This was out on the internet, Tom. This is in the Sun, and it's all over the news. I mean, it's really crazy.
You said the people who are weird. I'm thinking,
They are weird.
well, why you reading?
I get all these news feeds come up on my phone every day, and this was one that popped up over the weekend, and I thought, I don't read them all, but this one I thought, let me look at this and see. This is really crazy. Like, where did these people come from?
Barbara, in the beginning of the story, did you say this lady worked at a mortuary?
She works in the hospital morgue.
In the hospital morgue.
Right.
So she is stealing body parts out of the hospital morgue.
Right.
And then trafficking them and selling them to
individuals. This particular man that they know that lived in California, she sold 24 different body parts to, shipped boxes of the body parts to him. He paid over $10,000 for these body parts. Wow. And I'm thinking, where do these people, what is wrong with people in this world today?
Wow.
Yeah. And they said there's a whole Facebook group. I didn't go to check that, but I don't even know what it's called. But they said has something to do with people collecting body parts. Yeah. What in the world? Everything from brains to arms to hands to feet, you name it.
Wow. Okay.
We'll move on, Michael. I got something I think you might want. We could discuss a little bit. There's a line in the August Wilson play Fences where Bono tells Troy, who's the main guy. Troy talks about how he could have been a great baseball player, but it wasn't. It wasn't integration. It was segregation, and so he didn't get to play. And Bono says, "Troy, you just came along too early." And Troy said there never should have been a time called too early.
Too early, right.
So I'm saying that to you because I look at the television now and I see all these announcers, all these commentators, all these people, and I flash back to a time that was called too early.
Right.
And I know you were involved in communications. You were involved in television. So I was involved in doing television news and so on and so forth. And but you couldn't. I mean, there was very, very limited opportunity. Let me put it that way, in terms if you were a person of color. And so I look at it now, and I'm glad that people have the opportunities that they have. But there never should have been a time called too early.
Right. That could have been you and Michael on national TV.
I agree. I agree with that, Tom. And, when we came along, you had to use correct grammar. You had to carry yourself in a certain way, professional, poise. Now people get paid for acting crazy. So,
right.
So I wonder if we should have tried to employ those tactics back.
They probably wouldn't have worked back then, Mike.
No, I don't think it would.
But the crazier they are today, the more money they make.
It was just, I think the phraseology he used was perfect for it. It was a time called too early.
Yes.
Never
Yes.
should have been a time called too early.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. Yeah.
But anyway, so we want to move on, and where are we now? Let's see. Oh yeah, I got one more thing here. I'm just gonna run by you guys. We had another event at my old high school, John Carroll High School. The field at John Carroll High School is named after Pat Sullivan. It's the Pat Sullivan Field, and they have raised money to redo the stadium and to build a track around the stadium and so on and so forth. And so they invited several of us there. And the one thing that was really interesting is they have a book showcase now in the hall at the school, and for graduates who have authored books, and they have my book Walk On in there, and so that made me feel good.
That's great.
Congratulations,
Tom.
John Carroll was a great place. It made a big difference in my life, and so I tried to be there for them whenever they called.
That's awesome.
So, anyway, so let's move on. Sean's got a minute, I assume. So let's go to it and see.
Good morning to everyone joining in with us. My name is Shantia Jones, and this has Got a Minute. It's Tuesday, January 21st. Down here in South Florida, it's raining, it's cold, and I don't mind it at all. And with everything happening everywhere all at once within the political world, I thought that I'd share that on this day in 2017, women's marches were held throughout the world to support gender equality, civil rights, and other issues that were expected to face challenges under the newly inaugurated U.S. President, Donald Trump. The march was initially scheduled to be held in Washington, D.C., but sister marches arose throughout the United States and numerous other countries. According to some estimates, as many as 4.6 million people attended the various events in the United States, and it was widely believed that this is the largest single-day demonstration in that country's history. It's always interesting to see history repeats itself. Thank you all for joining in. My name is Shantia Jones, and this has Got a Minute.
Okay, sounds good. So let's move on. Hollywood's got the A list, and here on Tuesdays with Tom, we have the G list, and our G list guest today is Mr. Eric Butch Simmons. Eric Simmons is the chairman of the board and founder of the Prostate Cancer Awareness Foundation, established 2 years after his being diagnosed with stage 5 chronic kidney disease and stage 4B prostate cancer. Eric is a graduate of Auburn University, a former walk-on basketball player, and this man spent 32 years in sales and management for Fortune 500 companies, IBM, AT&T, GE, and W.W. Granger, closing sales of millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars. Still waiting on him to cut me a little bit out of that slice. Anyway, he's a self-published author of 5 books. Eric, good morning. How are you, man?
Well, good morning, Tom and War Eagle.
War Eagle, man.
War Eagle.
I'm waiting on my cut.
Well, what did you say? It's a little too early. Let me dovetail on a couple of things. Let me dovetail on a couple of things. First, Michael mentioned the 32-year-old punter. He's not eligible for NIL, Michael, but he is fastly approaching eligibility for Social Security. Right? That's number one. Number two, you talked about some medications being found to be useful in other areas. Well, incredibly, Tom mentioned that I was diagnosed with chronic kidney disease just before it was realized that I had stage 4B prostate cancer. I am currently under lisinopril, which if people have high blood pressure, they know what that is.
Yes.
And so when I tell people that I'm on lisinopril, they automatically say, wow, you've got high blood pressure. And I go, no, my blood pressure is fine. they found that it's helped stabilize kidneys when people have the type of kidney disease that I experienced. So that's number 2. And then number 3, again, Tom, it's too early for you to be asking me about money.
Good deal. Good deal. So I know Barbara and Michael got want to ask you some questions. Anything you want to lead off with first, Butch? I know you did. You spoke at the Owens Foundation, and you're serving on that board. You're on the prostate cancer board. So anything you want to lead off with?
Well, again, I would like to thank you for having me on today, and hello to Barbara and Michael.
Thanks, sir.
This year celebrates my starting the Prostate Cancer Awareness Foundation. And I did that because my wife and family and I went through so much. It was tragic, really, what I went through, and I'm lucky to be alive. Not only did I suffer kidney disease, I felt I almost died from the prostate cancer. And to give you an idea, since I started kind of keeping track of things, my medical negligence, my arrogance in not wanting to go see a doctor, believing that my having been a college athlete at a high level made me invincible, my doubt about white doctors, all of these things factored into me not going to get checked annually. And I've incurred doctors, hospitals, and lab tests have amounted to $653,000. That my medical bills have totaled that $653,000. Fortunately, insurance has covered a part of that, but I've come out of pocket 5 digits worth of money simply because I didn't pay attention to going to get checked for prostate cancer. And it's as simple for men to get a blood test to see how their prostate is doing. So this year, this month marks the first year of my new foundation. We're off to a great start, and we're going to continue to try to create awareness, particularly amongst the Black community. In November, I participated in a prostate screening event down in Tuskegee, which it was a great event, and one that I plan to participate in further. But those are just a couple of things. My New Year's resolution for 2025 is to stay out in front of people, particularly marginalized groups, and make these men and their families aware about the importance of getting checked for prostate cancer.
So Butch, why do you think, and we're talking Black men in particular here, won't go and get checked?
In my case, a lot of, think about COVID. When COVID came in the Black community, people thought, well, no, I'm not going to get a shot. Is this another Tuskegee experiment? So there's a history, I think, with Black people and white doctors. I think some of it is socioeconomic. Some of us, we don't have the financial resources to be able to see doctors. If you got Black people in rural communities, that could be an issue. A lot of it could be education or lack thereof. So the medical community has tried to figure out why there's such a high preponderance of prostate cancer in Black men, and it doesn't seem to be an answer to it. Some of us are genetically disposed to the disorder, and some have suggested in the United Kingdom that perhaps because we tend to have higher levels of testosterone, that could be the cause. But the bottom line is I had a robotic prostatectomy to remove my prostate. And there's technology today, there's advancements in medicine that the numbers should be going down. But interestingly, the numbers of prostate cancer new cases are going up. For this show, I did some research. In 2024, new cases were around 299,000. This year, they're going up 5% to about 314,000. Prostate cancer deaths are also increasing by 1%. It's estimated there are going to be about 36,000 deaths related to prostate cancer. So despite all of these advancements in technology and all of this information that's out there about prostate cancer, the numbers are going up. It's the opposite of what you would think should be happening. And so that's why I think our organization and what we're trying to do, we we just need to continue to advocate for men of all colors, and particularly marginalized groups that may have trouble getting to hospitals and seeing doctors because of lack of funding. We need to be out there talking about prostate cancer. We need to be sharing experiences like mine, which I've documented on our website. And we just need to educate people about it. We got to try to eliminate the fear that I think many Black men may have about the disorder. And there's also, for me, there was the fear of having a rectal exam was something that I felt violated my manhood. And I think a lot of Black men feel that same way. But you don't necessarily have to have a rectal exam initially. A rectal exam is used because, interestingly, the prostate is right near the rectum. That's why you have to have a rectal exam, because it's right next to it. And a doctor can use a rectal exam to feel and see if that prostate is growing. Because in a young man, it should be about the size of a walnut. But when that prostate is becoming diseased, it can get as large as the size of about a lemon. And so that's where the rectal exam comes in. But having prostate cancer screening or blood test in advance of getting as serious of a state of the disease as I had can be helpful, because now you can begin to monitor, and the patient and the doctor can make decisions about the care that's needed. And so had I known, all I could have done was taken a blood test when I was like in my early 50s, I would have done that without blinking. But I paid a price for not just being medically on top of things as it relates to my health. I thought I was, and I was a college athlete, and we tend to have the mindset that we're invincible. And I certainly carried that mindset, and I paid the price for it.
Barbara?
Yeah. Good morning, Butch, and thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Good morning, Barbara.
Talk about the symptoms you experienced and how you sort of played those off, and what I think you said your wife is basically the one that kind of forced you to go and finally get checked. But what were the initial symptoms that you experienced?
The initial symptoms, Barbara, it was interesting. About 2 years prior to me being diagnosed, I thought I had a urinary tract infection. And it turns out I had a yeast infection, which only about 2 or 3% of men get yeast infections. And so I honestly believe now, looking back, that was my body beginning to tell me something is going wrong.
Right.
So now, if you fast forward about 2 years, what was happening, I started getting up and going to the bathroom at night to urinate about 5 times. Then it increased to 6 times, then 7 times. And I thought it was due to old age. And so, and it was really funny. I called 2 of my cousins, and they're twins, and they're about 2 or 3 years older than I am. And we got on this conference call, and I said, guys, are you getting up late at night, urinating a lot? And they go, oh yeah, 3, 4, 5 times. And so now I've got what I thought was a baseline, and I'm thinking, oh, well, I'm fine. Right. Didn't realize they too had prostate cancer. It would come to find out, right? They both had it. So frequent urination at night is a symptom, particularly for Black men. I am advocating that Black men starting at the age of 45 start going to get checked for prostate cancer. Medical community will say 55. I'm saying 45. Right. Frequent urination. The other thing that started happening to me when I was showering, Barbara, I noticed the top of my feet started getting darker. My feet were beginning to get black, and that was because my prostate was growing, and it was pressing against my urethra, which I call the pee pipe. Mm-hmm. And so once that pee pipe began to start closing, my bladder was filling up. My bladder couldn't empty completely, and so my bladder was putting stress on my kidneys, because the kidneys are purifying things, and so now nothing could get purified. So I've got all of this going on. Now my kidneys are failing, and that's why my feet are beginning to get black. Wow. And I literally thought that because we used to get our ankles taped so heavily in college, I literally thought, and I did some hard cutting on the floor. I thought because I was ankle breaking people, that now I was experiencing the after effect of ruptured blood vessels.
Oh, wow.
So I blame that on athleticism, right? And
So in your mind, you kept self-diagnosing yourself.
I was self-diagnosing, right? So now I'm urinating frequently, but so are my cousins, so I'm okay. My feet are getting dark, but that's because I played sports and I had my tape wrapped too tight. The telling point, and here's where I just realized I had to get to a doctor. I got up one morning and I went to urinate, and the pain was so excruciating, I literally fell to my knees. And my wife heard me. I was in the basement. She was 2 levels up, and she heard me all the way on the 2nd floor. And she says, "You've got to go see a doctor." I went to an outpatient clinic, and they determined that I did have an infection, a urinary tract infection. But they couldn't care for me because my bladder was so full, they sent me to the emergency room. And it was at the emergency room is where we discovered not only had I suffered acute kidney failure, which that shocked me, right, because my kidneys didn't hurt, but yet they were only functioning at a 6% level. When you deal with kidneys, you deal with a measurement called effective glomerular filtration rate, EGFR. And anything between 0 and 9 is dialysis range. And I was at a 6. So now these people are preparing me for dialysis. Now, on top of that, later on, I was in the hospital during an 11-day stay, and it was discovered that not only had my kidneys failed, but I had prostate cancer, and I was already at stage 4B, and there were only 2 other levels left, stage 4C and stage 5. So I was in critical condition.
Definitely.
But to answer the question, frequent urination at night and start looking for things. My stomach, Barbara, started to, I had not a pot belly, but it was kind of an oblong shape, like a squash shaped belly because of the bladder filling up. So you got to take a look at your body. And if you start seeing things that don't look normal, you probably need to go get checked.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, you're welcome.
So I'm gonna call you Flea, but
that's fine.
We go back that far back.
Yes.
We go back. So, yes, we do.
Are you saying that the prostate cancer caused the kidney disease, or was it vice versa, or was it just separate that came together?
Well, I think here's just in my layman's knowledge of what happened, Michael, was my prostate. Okay, your prostate surrounds the urethra. Okay, it actually wraps around it. And the prostate is used to create, it's a gland that's used to create the liquid that's in semen. That's its primary function. And as we age, the prostate tends to grow. So what happened was cancer was growing inside of my prostate, causing it to grow. And as it was growing, it was squeezing, it was putting pressure on my urethra and causing my urethra to close. Now, because my urethra wasn't fully open and it was partially closed, when I would urinate, I wasn't completely emptying my bladder. So let's say now my bladder is still full, even though I've urinated, but not everything had come out, but I've got a partially full bladder. Well, now there's no place for that urine, which is acidic in nature. That urine can't go anywhere. So now my kidneys, which is trying to purify my blood and pour out into my bladder, there's no place for my kidneys to put the I guess the residue, if you will, of what it's trying to send to the bladder. So it's a stoppage. So my kidneys are sitting there working and doing their job, but the what they're releasing isn't going anywhere. And so my kidneys is like, it's like tires spinning, in mud. Right. And all of a sudden my kidneys go, oh, wow, I can't go any further because, this stuff should be going out through the bladder, and that should be a constant stream. The kidneys are flushing the impurities hit the bladder, they go out through the urethra. So because of that blockage from the prostate closing my urethra, everything backed up. I call what happened to me a traffic accident on I-285 at 4:00 on a Friday afternoon. Oh. You had one incident, one car wreck, and everything backs up.
Right.
And that's sort of the way I look at it, Michael, is what happened to me. I had one incident, that prostate growing and shutting that urethra, and it caused a backup. It backed my bladder up, and it backed up my kidneys.
Okay. It was interesting when I was reading this, you said stage 4B, and I had never heard of the B part. You know, I've heard of stage 4 and stage 5. I did not know what that B part, and you were saying it was B and C and then 5.
Right. I never understood that either, Michael. My doctor, he's renowned throughout the world. That was the way he described it to me. And he actually had a chart and all of this information. And it was a little overwhelming, but the way I looked at it was when he showed it to me and talked about the different stages of prostate cancer. I looked at him and I said, well, doc, what this really means is I'm in pretty bad shape. And he said, yes, you are. So anything above 4, I mean, it's pretty critical. It's pretty critical. In fact, Dexter Scott King, he was stage 4, but what happened to him, his prostate cancer got into his bones. And that's where it's really, really devastating. I had 2 bone scans, and fortunately, the prostate cancer did not enter my bones. Had it entered my bones, I'm convinced we would not be having this interview.
So, what's your status now, Butch?
Status now, I'm about 18, maybe going on 19 months now, and my cancer has been undetectable. I'm undergoing what's called hormone therapy. And the strategy behind hormone therapy, fortunately for me, I didn't have to take radiation or chemo. And it was an absolute blessing because the initial strategy was I was going to have radiation for about 13 weeks. And in my latest book, I talk about I had 2 divine interventions through this whole process. In the emergency room, I felt the presence of God. And then after I had my prostate removed, I felt the presence of an angel. And so I believe the combination of these 2 things sort of protected me. And I'm in the position that I am today. I don't think had this happened, these 2 events, if they hadn't happened to me, I don't think I would be alive. And I think God spared me. I get emotional when I say this. I think he spared me so that I could share my story with others so that we could prevent people from dying from prostate cancer. But I'm doing well. The kidney function is stable. I'm at about stage 3 in terms of my kidney functionality. I'm almost at about normal with the kidneys. And the prostate cancer, we haven't been able to detect it for 18 months now due to the hormone therapy. And the strategy there, I kind of forgot my train of thought. The strategy behind hormone therapy is to reduce the testosterone level to within the 30 range. The medically, they found if it's in a level of a range of about 30 or lower, prostate cancer will starve itself because the cancer thrives on 2 things, male testosterone and bone. And so because I didn't get it in my bones, what they're doing is we're basically starving the cancer by reducing my testosterone level. Now, because my testosterone level is being reduced, I'm also taking a steroid called prednisone, because when you lose some of that testosterone, you can lose some of your strength and your vitality. And so the prednisone or the steroid is used to kind of bring me back in balance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know it's a lot. It's a lot to digest and comprehend, but it's a miracle that I'm alive. So
absolutely.
Well, just for the other people listening, and particularly the men that are listening, your background being an athlete, you never abused alcohol and drugs of that nature. So most people will equate that if you had prostate issues, it's because of abuse of alcohol, drugs, or whatever. In your case, that was not it. Was it because of you being predisposed or family or something like that?
Yeah, good question. One of the things that the medical community will tell you about prostate cancer is try to, not to consume too much alcohol, not, smoking, things like that. Michael, was so concerned as to why in the world could I have ever gotten prostate cancer, because there was no history of cancer in my family. I took a DNA test, and that DNA test revealed that I did not have the gene for prostate cancer. I didn't get it from my dad. And every indicator was that there was no way I should have ever gotten prostate cancer. I was talking to the geneticist. We had a Zoom call, and I said, well, I'm looking at all this data and all these numbers, and it looks like what happened to me was a fluke. And the geneticist said to me, she said, yeah, you're right. It looks that way. So we don't know why I got it, but I got it. And the thing about that, had I been genetically disposed to prostate cancer, not only could my sons have gotten the gene, but my daughter could have gotten breast cancer, because there's a linkage between the breast cancer and prostate cancer, and that linkage is called the BRCA gene, BRCA, and it's pronounced BRCA. And I'm in the process of trying to put together a webinar with the Georgia Alliance for Breast Cancer, which is the largest breast cancer organization in the state of Georgia. We're working to put together a webinar where we're going to talk about the BRCA gene as relates to breast and prostate cancer. So we're trying to educate people on both sides about this BRCA gene.
Wow.
I hope I answered the question, Michael.
Yeah,
but you're a 5-time best-selling author. Talk about your books and what, how people can find them, what they're about, and how it can help people in their journey dealing with prostate cancer.
Well, I've written and self-published 5 books. Each of my books is designed to help people. I've had such a unique life, Barbara. My corporate career took me around the world. Tom talked about some of my sales. I was in Brussels, Paris, Hong Kong. I traveled extensively, and I was blessed. My mother had hours towards a PhD. My dad was a PhD. My parents divorced when I was 3, so I was raised by a single Black mom. My first book, Not Far from the Tree, was about the values that my mother instilled in me that helped me to go on and excel academically, athletically, and in corporate America. And in that book, I want to show young Black people in particular about life's possibilities. And I want them to see, if you can get a kid like me from a single Black parent that can go do some of the things that I was able to do in life, they can do the same things. Then once people realized that I had self-published my memoir, I got so many questions about, well, how do you self-publish a book? So I've written 2 books on how to self-publish. Then I started, fortunately, getting my books into libraries. And for self-publishers, when I started, that was almost impossible. People would tell me, there's no way as a self-publisher you'll ever get your book in a library. You have to be someone known, perhaps like a Tom Gossam, who can get a publisher, and Tom's appeared on TV and movies. And that kind of individual is more likely to get books in the libraries than someone that's unknown, such as myself. But so all of a sudden now I started getting my books in the libraries. I'm in over 344. And people started coming to me saying, well, how in the world are you doing that? So I wrote a book called Getting Your Book in the Libraries. And I combined that book with a self-publishing book. And then I had this incredible journey and battle with prostate cancer. And I did some research, and I couldn't find a single book ever written by a Black man about their prostate cancer experience post-surgery. I found 2 other books, but they didn't deal with the thought process and what was going on after surgery. So mine, to my knowledge, is the first book of its kind, and it's called Prostate Cancer Came A-Knocking. And I chose that title. I came up with that because it was like you're at home and all of a sudden a stranger arrives at your doorstep, unannounced. You don't expect them. And they knock on the door and you open the door and all of a sudden, boom, it's prostate cancer, something totally unexpected. So every one of my books has been designed to help others in some form or fashion. And I'm trying to, it's my way of giving back, right?
Right.
I've been blessed in so many ways. I just feel it's important as a Black man for me to reach back and help others, pull them up, because, again, I'm getting emotional. I can't tell you how many times in corporate America I saw Black people rise to certain levels and they would not reach back to help others. I've had people tell me in corporate America, I've got mine. Now you got to go get yours. And that's not the way it should be. You, Tom, Michael, myself, we all are doing the reaching back. This show is a part of that. And that's what I want my legacy to be.
Let me ask you a question, piggybacking off of that. And, you know, an Auburn grad, and we know how Auburn prepares you for the world outside.
Absolutely.
Those of us that attended Auburn,
Oh,
we know the intestinal fortitude and the mental aptitude and stuff you have to go through.
Michael, may I stop you for just a second? When I was in corporate America, many of the jobs I had, I was the first Black man they'd ever hired to do what I did. I was the first Black computer salesman for IBM in Birmingham, the first in Montgomery. I was the first MRI, X-ray, CAT scan salesman for GE in the Midwest. And people used to ask me, well, Eric, how are you able to do these things? How are you able to survive corporate America? How are you able to achieve success? And I would tell them this. I said, I went to Auburn University. Absolutely. I said, Auburn as a Black man prepared me for this. I said, if I can get through Auburn, I can get through anything.
Absolutely.
You all know how tough it was for us back in the 70s.
Yeah.
Now, I told people that.
That's why I asked you this question. I've made that statement in order to ask you this question.
Okay.
Now that we have a new person in the White House and they just signed an executive order to disband DEI. Right. Tell me, from your perception and your experience, what role DEI may have played in you getting these opportunities along with being prepared?
Right. Absolutely significant. I don't believe I ever would have been hired by IBM had there not been some kind of guardrails in place to say, hey, we need to give people an opportunity who may not have had one before. I absolutely believe there is no way I could have worked for IBM had there not been diversity, equity, and inclusion in place. AT&T, probably the same. GE, without a doubt, no doubt I could have gotten into GE. Not as a Black man. No way.
Well,
so it's critical.
AT&T was under consent decree, so
good point.
They had to do what they were doing.
That's a great point, Tom.
Right.
Yeah, that's a great point. They sure were.
So
many of the other companies are trying to avoid
expanding it. DEI and people coming up now, young brothers and sisters that's trying to get a start, and now DEI is disbanded. What do you see on the horizon?
Sadly, and this is something that I thought about when I was in corporate America, because I saw how difficult it was for Blacks. I thought about entrepreneurship. But what happened to me was I had a wife, I had a family, I had a mortgage. And so now you're saying, okay, if I jump out now, am I going to be able to make the same level of revenue as I was before? So for me, there was a little fear factor, but entrepreneurship is something, because I became an entrepreneur after I left corporate America. And I think if you've got good ideas and you've got good solutions, people will come. So because of this DEI situation, Michael, and I've met some vibrant and very enthusiastic young Black people. I know some that, are entrepreneurs and they're doing well. So that would be a possibility, because I don't know any way that you can undo what's trying to be done right now in the area of DEI, but entrepreneurship, and as a Black community, us sticking together and purchasing and buying from our own. We don't do enough of that.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Eric.
Oh, you're welcome.
Okay. Anything else from anybody? All right. Thank you, Eric. We appreciate it, man. It was great.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. I hope it's been helpful.
Okay. Let's get it. Okay. My closing comment for today, or as I see it, I got word this past week that my old high school football coach had passed. His passing put an end to a list of the living coaches I played under throughout my high school and college career. During the past few years, my basketball coach, Richard Porter, passed. High school football coach Hugh Craig passed this past year. This past spring, my receiver coach in college, Tim Christian, passed. And I was, and still am proud of the fact that we got the chance to talk before he passed. He called me out of the blue one day, and it was only later that I realized why. Of course, the man who was responsible for my football career, Coach Shug Jordan at Auburn, gave me his stamp of approval before he passed by telling me how proud of me he was and that I was one of his boys. Well, when you put that in perspective, that's quite an honor considering there were only 5 of us black football players ever given that honor in those early days of integration and throughout his 25 years of coaching. I appreciate them all and thanks for what they did with me in my life. And that's our show for today. We want to thank the audience. We appreciate you. Thank our sponsor, Best Girl. Thanks again to the TWT team, Barbara, Sean, Emily, Michael, and Joyce. And that's it for this January 21st in the new year of 2025. Remember, a day without a smile is a day wasted. Anthony's got to keep smiling. You're right, Anthony. Enjoy yourself. Make every day count. Stay safe. Peace.